Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the BMW CSL 73. Let's get into it. In factory trim, this BMW reminds us that slow and sloppy does not win the race. The suspension is extremely spongy and it lets the car slide around very easily, especially in the lower gears. This forces us to be cautious with our steering inputs so as not to destabilize the car. There is not a great deal of power available to us, but it is a reasonable amount considering the age of the vehicle. The power delivery seems to be too aggressive in the first two gears. Most of our time will be spent in third and a little bit of fourth. We should only go to second gear if absolutely needed. The brakes are decent enough for the application. There is no jankiness, but there is a touch of sponginess. Let's collect our time. 8 minutes 39.6 seconds. And now the race tune. There is nothing out of the ordinary with this race tune at all. The suspension and differential setups are very mild compared to what we're used to. And even though we have absolutely no downforce at the front, there was no need for ballast to be added to stop the front from lifting. Let's hit the track. After being modified and tuned, this CSL is well balanced all round. The handling is actually quite good, especially considering there is no front aero. It generally moves as instructed and is stable in most conditions. We have to be trying considerably hard to destabilize this BMW. There is a degree of understeer that we can feel when exiting turns on full throttle. This is due to the grip that we have from the rear wheels pushing us forward, but this can easily be defeated by running 5% less throttle. There has definitely been an increase in power, but it's not an astronomical difference. The power delivery itself is not aggressive, but we can lose traction if we are heavy-handed with it. The brakes are now quite solid with no issues to report. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes 42.1 seconds. On to the drift tune. We only had to make a few minor tweaks to the suspension to get the CSL to drift. The body height adjustment and natural frequency were the main focus, and of course the comfort hard tyres. Let's go drifting. The BMW CSL 73 drifts well, but it's difficult to say it's a standout drift car. It does do what it needs to do, but it does not excel. From the outside, it can look like it's struggling to drift, but on the inside it is drifting well and is decently controlled. The handling is relatively precise and guides the car well enough on circuit. There is no real issue in any department, but it does have a sense of indifference about it. The power we have available to us is best described as being just okay. There is definitely enough to initiate drifts and maintain slides. However, it does still feel like it needs some more oomph. The power delivery once again also works, but can leave a bit to be desired. It does everything it needs to initiate and hold a drift, but it tends to feel like it's only just pulling it off and is right on the verge of gripping up. Cards on the table, this is definitely a low to mid drift car, but it doesn't mean we can't have fun with it. Let's do an engine swap. In factory trim, with just the engine swap, the CSL is a hot pile of steaming mess. Any negative trait associated with a bad race car is present in this engine-swapped vehicle. It understeers and oversteers, and in many cases at the exact same time. It floats all over the track, sometimes at random, and spearing off in any direction it chooses. It's wobbly and janky in all conditions we find ourselves in on circuit. The power and power delivery are nightmarish in nature. Very aggressive and very snappy, Tom. The only way to effectively maintain control is to use the top two gears and a lot of throttle modulation. And under braking, it's wobble nation in a teacup. So summing up the driving experience, it's not very pleasant to drive at all. Let's collect our time. "8 minutes and 1 second flat. And good riddance to that. On to the race tune. Our race tune for the engine swapped CSL has had to focus on removing a considerable amount of understeer from the front. So our body height adjustment is lower at the front than the rear. We have also added ballast of 20 kilos at a ballast positioning of -35 over the front wheels. Let's see it in action. The tune has made a world of difference. We can now drive without the fear of random events spontaneously combusting right in our faces. The handling is now adequate for the driving package, but it seems like an incredible improvement because of how bad it was before modification. The power delivery is great. There is plenty of horsepower on tap, but it's not overly aggressive. The increase in power means that we are more likely to slide. Unfortunately, the CSL with the engine swap does not like to slide. Not at all. So it's best to make corrections as soon as possible because it has a very nasty bite when it inevitably grips up. The brakes have had a marked improvement. This makes them seem amazing in comparison to what they once were. Let's collect our time. "6 minutes 26.8 seconds. And now the drift tune. Our drift tune only sees a few minor changes to our suspension, most importantly switching the settings of our body height adjustment. It should also be noted that our ballast has increased to 50 kilos and our ballast positioning is now 30 over the rear wheels. Let's drift Suzuka. When drifting the factory engine CSL, we said we needed more power. And with the engine swap, our prayers have been answered. And not only do we have more power, we also have more torque. What this all means is that we no longer have to fear gripping up. When drifting the CSL with the engine swap, it may seem a bit wobbly on its feet the first time out on track, but it does not take very long to get used to it and fall right into the flow. With the decent addition of weight at the rear, it means that we lead with the tail. However, this leaves the front to do one single job: steer, and it does it quite well. As previously mentioned, there is much more power. This means it is easier to initiate drifts and get out of hairy situations. The power delivery is extremely solid. It comes on smooth but strong. This makes it very easy to control the car with the throttle and maintain a nice drift. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!